it's like this is something you are searching for as a founder. It's a new persona inside a company that has needs and has pains and wants to create something. And we've got the tooling for it.
Welcome to Startup Knockout. I'm your host, Timo Higgs. Today on the show, we've got Dr. Christopher Scheubel from Cubemos. They are the go-to guys for sustainability, and their AI-driven platform is helping German small and mid-sized companies not just reach their ESG goals, but to turn ESG into a competitive advantage. Now, I have to say, this is a talk that I've been looking forward to. ESG is such an interesting topic, and I can't wait to hear how the German Mittelstand is taking this on. So strap in and say hi to Dr. Christopher Scheubel.
Timo, very nice. Thank you very much for having me today.
And we're going to go right into the beginnings of Cubemos. Now, this is a bit of an interesting way you named your company. It was your former office space, I understand. So maybe give us the usual or maybe the unusual version of the beginnings of your company.
Fully correct there. It was our, let's say our garage office was called the Cube, and we started out there. It was such a time when the startup begins, which was very important for us. And we saw, okay, the Cube has more importance to us than even the office, because if you think about it, everything that has to do with data and data slices, you call them data cubes. It's also. And if you think about sustainability and ESG, it's also 3 letters. It's also cubic. This is why it all comes together with a cube. And then we
I love how nerdy this is.
Yeah, it comes down to that. And we said, yeah, this is our name. It's Cubemos, and the domain was free. It's also important for a startup, right? This is how we came across that name. To give you the story of us and the beginning, it's an unusual story. So you will get the unusual story per se.
Great, say. Bring it on.
We started out bootstrapping, and we managed to develop a product beside the project. And this was occupational health and safety. And the occupational health and safety was a part of ESG. It's in the S part. And it's digitization happening there. It's like, if you're doing it manually now, we've got a software. We can fully digitize it. We are in the automation business. And being in that companies that needed this automation in the S part from ESG, occupational health and safety, we saw a huge development. And this was sustainability and ESG. And it was not just this little S part, it was the complete thing. And the persona that we saw was much different. It was not a persona that did something manually and that needed to digitize something. These were persons that want to create something, who want to have impact in the company, who position themselves inside the company. And this was crazy, because it's like, this is something you are searching for as a founder. It's a new persona inside a company that has needs and has pains and wants to create something. And we've got the tooling for it.
That's very interesting. So you weren't actually building this with companies in mind. You were getting really specific right from the start, where you were targeting people inside a company who want this sort of thing to happen. Did that really color your approach?
Indeed. We like, if we talk about the persona, I always have our customers in mind, and thinking about how they feel inside their companies, how they feel using our product, and how they feel being in the outside world. This is what triggers us, and this is also how we structure our software development. And the position they are in, I would call it, they've got a 360 degrees of pressure, because they are new. It's a new position inside the company. There's regulatory pressure. There's management pressure. Management wants to be sustainable. They see it as strategic value. And then there are the sales guys. And the sales guys come and say, hey, I will lose the deal if we are not doing something in ESG. If we cannot present the numbers, it's your fault. So they've got the pressure from all the sides, even from the inside. And giving or providing a tool that solves this and that mends this pain also gives us a lot of satisfaction in the end.
You're actually kind of using the regulatory framework as a bit of a sales push. So you're triangulating pressures from outside and from inside the company. And also, I imagine your clients, their customers are asking for this sort of thing. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing a big customer demand for ESG?
I will give you some examples for that, because regulatory trend is a macro trend. It's not the core. It's not. I'm doing this because I want to be compliant with regulation. But it's a macro trend that pushes the whole market. This is the good thing about the macro trend. But it goes even further down. So the regulation is for companies 250 employees plus. It's already a lot of companies in there. But even if you are below that, you will fall out of the value chain if you don't comply with regulation. We've got like one customer in the logistics sector. They were driving or doing the logistics for an automobile company, for OEM, for manufacturer. And the manufacturer said to them, please show me your numbers. Do you have a sustainability report? And they said, no, but I don't have to because I'm too small. And now they are not doing the logistics anymore for that company. But they are our customers now, and they will go back in. And this trickle-down effect, it goes down from the enterprises. Next thing, 250 plus employees. So the mid-sized company, German Mittelstand. But even the suppliers to Mittelstand are now in the position that they need to provide something. And this is something that we can help with, actually.
Let's talk about the Mittelstand a little bit more, because this is a massive part of the German economy. I'm interested to hear your insights on the mentality and the culture of the Mittelstand. Do you think the majority of them are ready to start implementing this ESG?
I don't even like the word, because Mittelstand, mittel means something in the mid. But actually, it's the backbone of the German economy, first thing, and all of them are outstanding in their own businesses. Second thing that happened, and this is also something that came into place lately, was COVID and home office, which brought Mittelstand to a push of digitization. Now, people with culture and business model and hidden champion mentality needed to become on a fast track digital. And this made them ready.
Yeah, I've heard it said you should never waste a good crisis, because it's an opportunity to move forward.
It is, and I think it was for most of them, actually.
Yeah, this is getting a little bit away from ESG. We'll come right back to it, but this is an important question. So this digitization that you see in these businesses that you're working with, in the mid-sized businesses, are they trying to stick with it? Because I've heard a lot of stories about more traditional companies, as soon as they were able to, trying to get people back into the office, which I suppose touches a little bit on the social part of ESG, but I guess it's more how you interact with your employees and how you want them to be with you at work and all of that. How does this look from your perspective?
I think it's a kind of a leveling wave which is happening. It's like everybody in home office, then you see how it works, how the work environment changes, new work. Is it possible completely? I'm sure for a certain time it is. But then you see the drawbacks. And then you go back to office and see, okay, what happens if we talk to each other again, if we have personal contact, if we've got this non-verbal communication which is happening. And then it goes back, and then it will level out. And I think it's a very good thing that it's possible also to do home office like 2 times a week, 3 times a week. But I'm sure that it's not possible to stay in this position that these companies are in, like hidden champions, pushing innovation, there you also need very strong teams that bond. And this bonding will not happen online. It must happen if people like see each other, feel each other, smell each other, and work very closely together.
I'm not sure how important that last one is, but I understand what you mean. I was watching an interview with the author Malcolm Gladwell not too long ago. He said something I thought was really prescient, which is it's very hard to feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself if you're not there with people.
Completely true.
Okay, so let's get back to the ESG stuff. Now, I want to make this a little bit more concrete. So to be able to understand how your customers work with you. So let's say I'm a company with 500 employees and I have no idea about ESG and I'm looking to dip my toes into social responsibility for the first time. What does that look like when I come across Cubemos?
It's a very good question, and most of our customers do have this question because ESG is kind of a fuzzy topic. It's even complex, and the first steps are the most difficult part. Like most customers, they come to us and say, "It's so complex, I don't know what to do. Regulation is changing, demands are changing. It's a lot of work. Where shall I start?" But in fact, you can boil it down to 5 steps. It's a 5-step process which a company needs to go through. And the first thing is materiality. Materiality, in simple words, is like define which parts of ESG are important to you as a company. For us as software developers, CO2 emissions are less important than, for example, production companies or energy companies. For them, it's tremendously important. And defining where you have most impact defines most of your ESG strategy and also what you need to report in the end, where you need to focus on. So this is the first part. And there you also involve all the stakeholders. The second part, when you've got this lined out, then you collect the data. Because what you are doing in ESG and the whole sustainability topic, first transparency, then set targets, then measures. And the second thing, after you know what to do, is you create transparency, and then you collect the numbers. And this, it's also not that difficult. It's inside the company. You just need to extract it, like gender pay gap ratio, human rights policies. And there are departments, and in the departments are people. And then with our tool, of course, you've got the opportunity to demand from those people automatically to provide those numbers also with the relevant proofs. Then you've got collected all the numbers. Then you've got the transparency and say, okay, we've got X amount of CO2 emissions. We've got X amount of waste, water usage. We've got the gender pay gap ratio of this. Like you've got all the transparency. And then the next thing is you set yourself targets. You make sure that you improve. And this is also where some intelligence comes in, where you need to think about it, where you need to discuss and say which targets make sense. It's like 20% production. Is that realistic or not? If I even increase my sales, can I reach that goal? Or is it like more sensible to reduce the amount of emissions, for example, per euro revenue or per unit produced? Like this is the third thing, where you set the targets. And then you connect measures to the targets. How to, and this is the most important part, the how to. Like, if I want to reduce by 20%, how to do it? First, second, third, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, what to do to achieve the targets that I set for my company. And then you are ready for reporting. This is the end. This is like the final goal. Then you can show it to the outside world and say, I've got it.
That is a very beautiful, very logical 5-step process. Super easy to follow. I love that. Let's dive down a little bit into that. How involved is Cubemos at each stage? So let's take the data collection stage. Do you actually help them set up those data collections, or do you just say, these are the data that need to be collected and here's how others have done it? Maybe you give them some examples, or have service providers you work with that you can send them who help them get set up on that sort of thing. So what's your level of involvement?
Our level of involvement is highest in the beginning because it's the most important step with the materiality, where we really have a lot of touch points also with our customers, because it sets out which data needs to be collected. Also obligatory by regulation. Most touch points. The second thing for the data collection, we can already provide a lot with automation. It's a guided process. Even like you do your taxes. If you do your taxes with automation, it tells you this is how you need to collect it. And typically, companies collect it from this department, and it's typically in that range. Like it's there's already an automation process in place where you can add a lot of value with a good guidance inside software. And by the way, this is also where software makes sense in the end. It's like if the process and the process guidance is better than what you can do yourself, trying to use Excel and email and Word templates, this is where software really adds value. And the first step where software really adds value is the data part and the data collection part.
And I understand you also have artificial intelligence running in the background of your software. Can you tell us what that is enabling you to do?
Mm-hmm. Typically, there are experts, and AI comes into place. You see it in ChatGPT. It's huge. We all know that.
It's booming.
It's booming, yeah. Where expert knowledge comes in, their AI adds a lot of value, and AI adds a lot of value if it can tell you, I've got the transparency from you. I know your industry. I know your size. For you, 20% reduction makes sense. And to reach that 20% reduction, typically you should do measure X, Y, Z. This is what AI can do and add value there, and will improve with every data entry that we do for our customers. Like if we say our list of measures and you can pick them, we can derive and improve all the time on our recommendations, which are done inside the software to help you achieve the goals and to help you set the right measure to achieve those goals. This is where AI comes into place.
I like the idea of an AI as a consultant. So where you could go to a person and say, you have lots of experience, tell me what makes sense, what percentage should I be aiming for? It's really making things so much more streamlined and productive. And I can see that with yours. Let's change gears a tiny bit, though. And I want to talk about something that I've heard you say in recordings, and that is that ESG is not just something that is a responsibility anymore. It's becoming a competitive advantage.
Yeah, we see it a lot, actually. So it's, of course, the customers that push, but it's 360 degrees. It's also, do you get the right talent? We've got one customer in their management structure. It's pure male. Do you think they get female talent? If the female talent sees, if I go to that company, will I achieve the highest ranking management position or not? If it's pure male, likely not. And having transparency on that, having that like written down in numbers, setting out the goals, putting out policies inside the company to change it and to enable the changing process, it's not just the customers, but it's also one core resource of your company that you cannot tap into because you are on the wrong track. And this is like one competitive advantage that's not that obvious like the customer, but it's more like in the talent part. And of course, if you are a customer and you've got a supplier, and you've got the ability to choose that supplier by rules of ESG, you diminish risks. Like we see it a lot currently, like the greenwashing scandals and the people that were moving too fast, actually, and trusting too fast. And they had a lot of risk inside the company, and now it comes back. And just imagine, like, if you've got in your value chain child labor, what will happen? It's a huge risk. And having the eye on that, having transparency on that, and having policies in place that avoid having child labor in your value chain adds a lot of advantage to your company. And this competitive advantage, it will show over time.
The sentiment of reducing risk in your value chain, because with the way media moves so fast nowadays, I believe that the days where companies can kind of do this and say, oh, we didn't know, it's not an excuse anymore. It can actually really hurt their business.
I also think so.
Now this might be a bit of a softball question, but I'm actually kind of interested in this. So the traditional idea of a startup culture with, foosball tables and ping pong and free food and free coffee.
Of course we have ping pong.
Of course you have ping pong. So here's my softball question. Do you think this actually belongs as a part of ESG because it's kind of making your employees' lives better? Or is this just, it's separate, it's nice, it's not really necessary when we're talking about ESG?
It belongs to the S part for sure. It's part of the whole. It's part of the whole game. First thing, fundamentally, I believe only if the people working for a company feel comfortable, they will do good work, and they will do the things that are created are like more than the single parts added together. It's like the only thing you can create something bigger if is in the state of mind of people, if they are happy, if they feel relieved and not under pressure, not like you have to do that. Only way. This is just general. Now part of ESG, it should actually be measured. And part of it is also how you develop people. How many interviews do you have? In which time frames? Are there personal development plans set out for every employee or for part of the workforce? These are specific KPIs inside the S part that are measured and should be improved. And this has a high value and high impact, especially for larger companies. For smaller companies like us, it's in our DNA. We do it with every employee. It's like we've got 2 bi-weekly check-ins with everybody, seeing how you feel, how you want to develop, which part is good, which is not so good. But for larger companies, it becomes difficult. If you grow, it becomes more and more difficult. And this is why I think it's a very valuable part. It's a must-have. It should be measured, and it should be also improved, and there should be targets. It's like at least, like, even for a large corporation, every 2 or 3 months, check in and with every employee and set out the development goals.
I can't agree with you more. I think that is so important. There was an author, Daniel Pink, who talks about this a lot, is that if you want to be happy at work, it's not just about pay, it's about autonomy and mastery, feeling like you're getting better at your job, feeling like you're moving forward in life. And what you just said is an absolute crucial part of that sort of thing. So startups, if you're listening, make sure that when you start growing, you have exactly this sort of thing in it. Maybe go over to Cubemos because they can help you with that development.
And they can help you playing a little bit of ping pong also.
A little bit of ping pong. Maybe there's a KPI for ping pong. Great. So let's move away from ESG for a short moment, because you're a Munich-based startup, and I'm wondering what your relationship is with the Munich startup ecosystem. Are you involved in it at all? Do you pull resources out of it? Do you do a lot of networking? How do you fit in there?
Yeah. So Patrick, my co-founder, and I, we are both part of the CDTM network.
What does CDTM stand for?
Center for Digital Technology and Management. They draw like 20 students from TU and LMU, and they get an initial or an additional to their main studies. They get an additional education and also an additional degree, and it's purely focused on entrepreneurship. So already as students, you will work together with different disciplines like computer science. You've got business administration, mechanical engineering, book scientists, like everybody like works together on projects that are very close to entrepreneurship. This like was our first touch, like for Patrick and I. It was our first touch with entrepreneurship. And this whole ecosystem, of course, has a lot of resources because you've got very successful founders, you've got business angels, you've got people working for VC funds. And for every question that we do have, we know from this network which person to talk to. It's like if we need money, if we need resources, how to hire, how to do the job interviews. It's like, and you don't get a no, actually. It's like, if you belong to that network, it's like, hey, I know you are in that stage, we are at that stage. Can you tell me how we did this back then? and this gives also a lot of confidence. This is why I'm very grateful actually to be part of that network and having the opportunity to tap on the resources of this network. Also, our first financing came from that network. It's like we're doing our first round, the business model, this is our traction right now, how to do it, and then people jumped in.
That's funny. That reminds me of the Skull and Bones Club at Harvard University.
I think
a little bit less secretive, though.
Less secretive, yeah, less secretive. I would also say so. Yeah.
That's great. So that's something that you actually kind of get pulled into. So it's not something a normal student could sign up for. Is that correct?
You need to apply for it. Apply for it. And the selection process is not that easy. But if you really want to do the entrepreneurship track and you've done something in the past that supports it, the chances are pretty high.
That is a fantastic resource. So then it is available for everybody. It's just not everybody is accepted.
Yes, that's it.
So I want to dig into your past just a tiny bit. That you already had a first go with being an entrepreneur before Cubemos, if I understand correctly.
True.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and what you learned that made you think, I want to do this again, and I think I can do it better next time?
Yeah, good question. The first thing that we were doing back then was an app with which you could order food and pay for food inside restaurants. It was like ordering and payment application. And it was right after university, right after finishing. It's like the first thing, let's do an app. And it worked. Technologically, it worked. Like in Munich, you could order your beer inside a bar with our app. And then at the POS system, it said table number 5 ordered 1 beer, and it's already paid by PayPal or credit card. And fun fact, very funny fun fact, we were processing via Wirecard back then. So Wirecard was doing the payment processing.
As long as it worked for you.
Yeah, back then it did. It's already quite a long time ago. And the main learning back then was the market, and the market demand is so much more important than technology. It's like the technology works, we made it happen. It was pretty complex. The whole technological stuff, but it was not in use. It was like hardly used at all. It's like our friends loved it, like they ordered a lot, but the other persons didn't. And why? I also discovered that afterwards there are parts in life where you don't want to have the digitization, and one of them is if you are social and inside a restaurant or inside a bar. It's like of course, the process is much more efficient, but you don't want it. You want the process, which is manual, where you look into the eye of the waiter. Maybe you want to flirt with the waiter. You don't want to flirt with your cell phone and order inside your cell phone. This was the main learning back then.
There's a certain amount of digitization I think people are prepared for. But beyond that, when you start losing the social interaction, when that's a big part of the experience, you're right. I think you have to be very careful about that. And here's a fun fact for you. My very first startup attempt was something very similar. It was a restaurant app where you could order from the table so that you didn't have to wait for a waiter. So you and I might have been competitors for about a year. I don't know if the timing matched up.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Cool. And then we've got a similar background.
And we do, very much so. Okay, so that's going to bring us to the end of our talk and bring us into our game, win, lose, or draw. So here we go with win, lose, or draw. Are you ready for it, Christopher?
Yes, let's go.
All right, here's your first one. Win, lose, or draw. The vast majority of German companies having an ESG program within the next 10 years.
That's a clear win. I'm pretty sure that will happen. Also, if you think of the distribution of German companies, it's like most of German companies are actually small companies, but even though most of them are, and the vast majority is small, I think they will have it. And they will not have the full-blown compliance system with all the KPIs tracked, but they will have something. And even a basic package will give them the competitive advantage and will make them ready for the market. So this is why, yes, it's a win.
So this is definitely going to become a necessity in your eyes and not just something that people can choose to do. It's business essential.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Win, lose, or draw. Enviro, social, and governance programs all individually becoming too big to be lumped together as ESG in the future.
That's a lose.
Let's hear why. Why do you think they will stay together?
They must stay together. They only work together. It's a balance of all three pillars. If you like lose one pillar, the whole construction will fall down. And this is why they must go together. And also there are interdependencies between those fields. If you dig a little bit deeper, it's like the sustainability, then it's ESG. And below that are the KPIs. And they don't stand alone. They must work together. This is why you cannot rip them apart.
I like that answer. I really like that answer. Okay. So then, our last one, we're widening our gaze here. Win, lose, or draw. Germany reaching its climate action goals of a 55% reduction in CO2 by 2030.
That's a lose. Unfortunately.
It hurts.
It hurts. I know. If you think of the 5 steps in the beginning, it's like materiality, what to do. Decision was to reduce CO2 reduction. Good. Second thing, transparency. We do have it. On a national level, we do have it. That's a good thing. Then we've got set out the goals. 55% reduction, also time-bound. 2030 works. But the hardest part is the how-to. It's the measures. And the measures out there and the willingness of the ministries, single ministries, to like have sensible measures, trackable measures. This is what we don't see. So the how-to is the part that's missing here. And it's a crucial part. This is why, unfortunately, I think it's a lose. But I would like it to be a win.
I think we would all like it to be a win. Do you actually have any sense for how far along Germany is on that goal?
Not even halfway through. From a gut feeling. But it's not linear. It's like the first things you can do are pretty easy and you get the reductions, but it gets harder and harder and harder. And the last 5% you want to reach will cost like 80% of the effort.
Yeah, that is some serious diminishing returns we can look forward to in the future.
Indeed.
Wonderful. So that was our win, lose, or draw. That brings us to the end of our episode. Christopher, this was fantastic. I learned so much from this, and it's a topic where I'm really glad to learn because I'm so interested in how this is moving forward, and it's really nice to see this on more of a company scale rather than these big, broad goals that you hear about in the news. So thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Timo, it was good fun, actually. Thank you also very much.
Then we will check in with you another time later in the future. Until then, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for joining us this week. Next week, the last in our Impact Startup mini-series, Anna Alvarez from Migrapreneur. She's going to talk to us about helping migrant entrepreneurs and smashing German bureaucracy. Catch you then.